Continuing with our look at a wide range of DVDs in the Flash, we now move on to some of the more, let's say, interesting releases. First up, we have The Green Slime, one of the Warner Archive DVDs. The Warner Archive, of course, is the fantastic service that brings low-budget, classic, cult movies, all kinds of projects to DVD for the first time. They're on a made-to-order basis, so you can get them through the Warner Archive website, which you can find in the review above the video player here. And in this case, The Green Slime is this really sort of awesome, or as I like to call it, awesomely bad science fiction film from way back in the day in the 1950s, and it is directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who, according to the packaging, was championed by Quentin Tarantino as sort of an unheralded director. It's a made-in-Japan monster movie with a mostly American cast, the most famous of which is Richard Jekyll. But it's really kind of a terrible movie, but it's a fun, terrible movie. It's one of those movies that you can really watch and enjoy, and if you have a bunch of friends over, you can sort of do the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment with. There's nothing really good about it per se, but that's kind of its charm. So it's hard to dismiss it as just a terrible movie when there is definitely something about it that you will enjoy. As with all Warner Archive discs, there are no extra features, but again, I imagine there's a legion of fans out there for films like this, and if you enjoy that kind of movie, you will definitely enjoy this movie. Next up, we have Roger Corman's Best of the Bees Collection 3, Escape from Prison. Now, this is one of these low-budget releases where there's, from the Infinity Group, there's 5 films in it. It's in really cheap packaging. It's all that kind of public domain type stuff where there was really no care put into the putting together of this package. So it's a 3-disc set, and it includes 5 movies: Swamp Women, Women in Cages, The Big Bust Out, The Hot Box, and High School Big Shot. None of them are particularly great. The Hot Box does come with a screenplay that was co-written by Jonathan Demme, and you'll recognize a few people in the movie, such as Pam Grier, Beverly Garland, and Mike Connors. But again, there's really nothing particularly special here. The films are some in color, some in black and white. As with all Corman movies, you do get a good amount of nudity, some harsh language, but really this is kind of your basic B-movie, women in prison, women escaping from prison, women on the run, exploitation movies. If you're a diehard Corman fan, this is a good, cheap way to get some of his earliest films. If you're not, I suggest you stick with some of the more notable special editions that Shout Factory's been putting out recently of some of Corman's more notable films. Next up, we have Trouble in Mind from filmmaker Alan Rudolph, which is sort of this neo-retro, futuristic kind of noir film. It stars Chris Christopherson, Keith Carradine, Laurie Singer, and Genevieve Bujold. And it's just kind of strange. I mean, really the most notable thing about it is that it features Divine from the John Waters films, the famous transvestite, in his only male role, and it features music by noted composer Mark Isham. But it's just kind of this strange character piece about people in the city and gangsters, and I wish I could tell you more about the story, frankly, if I could have followed it more, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot happens in the film. It certainly is interesting to see it on DVD in this new kind of special edition release, but I wish I could say that I enjoyed the film more. It is a 25th anniversary special edition, so what that includes is a making-of feature that includes new interviews with Chris Christopherson, Keith Carradine, Laurie Singer, and Genevieve Bujold. There's also an interview with Alan Rudolph and Mark Isham, and then there's some liner notes by the director, Alan Rudolph, so at least that's something extra. If you're a fan of this film, it's a nice special edition. I don't know there's a lot of fans of it out there, but I imagine it has some kind of cult appeal, otherwise they probably wouldn't have bothered making a special edition. Next up we have The Trial, based on the Robert Whitlow book. Kind of an interesting film about a lawyer who decides he's going to commit suicide after losing his family, but he takes on one last case, and of course that case sort of re-inspires his faith. This is one of those kind of faith-based dramas, and I will say it isn't nearly as bad or as over-the-top as it could be with that type of stuff. I'm not necessarily into the faith-based dramas, but I will say that this one works on the trial level. At least it's an interesting trial, and families who are looking for a families who are looking for a good kind of Christian message in a film, and people who are really selective about what type of movies they watch, this is certainly something they can watch. It is PG-13 though; it's not a kids film, but if you have preteens and teens who are a little more mature, this certainly is a film that it could be worth watching. It's enjoyable enough for what it is, and it does feature a nice performance from Matthew Modine. So certainly worth looking out for if that's your type of thing. There is also an audio commentary with the director, the writer, and one of the producers. Next up, we have A Nanny for Christmas, which stars Dean Cain, and I know I'm going to say her name wrong, but Emmanuelle Vaugier, who's famous for a lot of genre TV, mostly Smallville, and just guest starring on pretty much every other show known to man. And this is pretty much a typical kind of Christmas rom-com dramedy that you'd see on the Lifetime channel or the Hallmark channel or things like that. It really is helped by the fact that Dean Cain and Emmanuelle V, as I'm going to call her, have a lot of charm. They have a lot of chemistry on screen. So it's a fun enough film, not necessarily the type of thing I'm going to watch over and over again, but if you like Lifetime movies or We Network programming, it certainly is worth watching. There's only really one extra feature aside from a trailer, but it is nice audio commentary. You get the producers, the writer, the director, and Emmanuelle V, as well as her co-star Richard Ruccolo. No Dean Cain, unfortunately. Finally, we have Fire and Ice, The Dragon Chronicles, on Blu-ray, no less. This is a fantasy movie that really just doesn't do much. It doesn't live up to the promise of the cast. Now, Amy Acker from television's Angel, John Rhys-Davies, and Arnold Vosloo don't necessarily lead you to believe you're going to be watching, the greatest movie ever, but it certainly leads you to believe it could be a fun kind of fantasy romp. The fact that it was also directed by Pitoff, who directed Catwoman, granted not the high watermark of filmmaking, but at least the man is a competent enough filmmaker, you might think this is going to be a fun movie. Not so much. I will say I like kind of the concepts and the designs behind the dragon and the dragons. The fire and ice of the title is not just rhetoric. There's actually kind of a part of the story and a part of how the dragons are created, and that's pretty cool. But overall, the problem with the film is that the dialogue is so incredibly awful and stilted. It just kills every scene that any actor appears in. So no matter how cool things like the dragon concepts are, and the special effects are decent but not great, every time someone opens their mouth, the movie just basically goes downhill. So that's Fire and Ice. You do get a making of featurette, and the film looks decent in Blu-ray. Again, the high definition kind of reveals the flaws in the special effects, but it looks pretty decent. The DTS HD Master Audio surround soundtrack is also pretty decent. It's not going to blow your world away, but at least there is some surround action, although it tends to be a little more front-centered than what you'll get in the rear channels. So for diehards of the fantasy genre who really like stuff on the cheesy side, this one could be worth watching, but again, that dialogue is going to pretty much kill it for everyone.